What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. I hope you're all doing amazing today. So, Frontier has just released the brand new Jurassic World Evolution 3 update 1.0.7. And I've got to tell you, it's one of those patches that might not look flashy on the surface, but it actually brings a bunch of important stability and quality improvements that make the whole experience smoother, faster, and honestly, a lot more enjoyable if you've been playing consistently. I know a lot of us have been waiting to see how the game continues to evolve after launch, especially with all the feedback floating around about workshop performance, crashes, and those random bugs that just show up at the worst possible times, like when you're trying to complete a mission and everything just decides to freeze. Yeah, those moments. So, this update is kind of Frontier's way of addressing those ongoing issues and setting a better foundation for what's next. Now let's talk about what's actually changed here. The update mainly focuses on stability, workshop fixes, and park management improvements. If you've ever messed around with the workshop, you already know that it can be both awesome and kind of a mess at the same time. It's an incredible feature that allows players to share and download other people's creations, from beautifully designed parks to fully fleshed out dinosaur habitats. But the problem was that once you started downloading a bunch of them, like let's say 10, 20, maybe more, you'd start noticing some pretty bad slowdowns. The loading times would stretch forever, sometimes the frame rate would drop to slideshow levels, and the overall experience would just become frustrating. Well, Frontier finally took notice of that, and in this update, they fixed those slow load and low FPS issues when you've got a lot of workshop items installed. What that means in plain terms is that you can now browse, install, and load up multiple workshop creations without worrying about your performance tanking. The menus feel snappier, the loading screens are faster, and you won't get that weird lag when switching between workshop tabs. Another small but important fix they made was related to uninstalling workshop blueprints while offline. Before this patch, if you tried to remove a workshop item without being connected, sometimes the game would just lock up or throw an error message. That's gone now. It's a small detail, sure, but it really helps make the system more reliable, especially for players who build and test parks without constant internet access. Moving on to park teams, something that's been a point of frustration for quite a few people. If you've played long enough, you've probably had one of those moments where your maintenance teams or medical teams just stop doing what they're supposed to, or worse, the game decides to crash when you try to give them a task manually. It's one of those bugs that seems small until you're managing a large park with multiple enclosures and you're in the middle of dealing with a sick dinosaur, and then everything freezes. The new update actually addresses a crash that occurred when maintenance teams with automated tasking were suddenly given a manual command. So now, the transition between automated and manual control should be seamless. They also fixed another crash related to removing dead dinosaurs from the Paleo Medical Facility. You know how sometimes when you're cleaning up after an outbreak or a storm and you've got several dead dinos being transported, the game would just suddenly crash? Yeah, that specific issue has been fixed too. It's one of those things that makes the game feel more stable and reliable overall, especially if you're managing multiple incidents in a busy park. Now, speaking of crashes, there are also several general stability improvements tied to fossil management and loading sequences. Apparently, some players were experiencing crashes when dealing with fossils in the management menu, especially when analyzing or selling them too quickly or while switching menus too fast. That's been fixed now. They also addressed a low-frequency crash that occurred when loading into the Montana tutorial level. It wasn't super common now, but if you were one of the unlucky players who ran into that bug, it could completely stop your progress early on. So it's good to see they cleaned that up. The performance improvements don't end there, though. According to Frontier, the patch brings a general boost in stability and smoother gameplay across the board. That might sound vague, but what it usually means is that they've optimized memory usage, improved how the game handles background tasks, and tightened up certain processes that were eating up resources unnecessarily. It's not the kind of thing you'll see in a big flashy way, but you'll definitely feel it when you play for longer sessions, especially if you're running big parks with hundreds of guests, dozens of dinosaurs, and tons of structures. Those kinds of parks used to stutter after a while, but now they're noticeably smoother. One thing I appreciate about this patch is that even though it's mainly focused on bug fixes, it actually shows that Frontier is listening closely to the community. A lot of these issues were brought up on the forums and Steam discussions for months, and they didn't just patch one or two of them. They went through and handled several different crash types that players had been reporting since launch. It's a reminder that even if a patch doesn't add new dinosaurs or features, the work behind the scenes is what keeps the game playable and fun. And yeah, I know a lot of us were secretly hoping this update might sneak in something new, like maybe a new dinosaur variant, a skin pack, or a small piece of DLC, but no, this one is strictly maintenance focused. Still, Still, I think it's a good sign that they're stabilizing everything now, because it usually means they're preparing for bigger content updates in the near future. Frontier tends to follow this pattern. They'll release a smaller patch to clean up bugs and performance issues, then shortly after, they'll roll out a major content update or expansion. So, if history repeats itself, we might be seeing something fresh soon. Now, let's talk about how this actually affects your gameplay day to day. For players who use a ton of mods and workshop content, you're going to notice the biggest improvement immediately. The laggy menu navigation, the slow load times, the weird freezes when switching between blueprints, all that feels much more streamlined. For players who like to micromanage their teams and park systems, you'll appreciate how much smoother task assignment feels now. Those random crashes that made you second guess whether to manually control a team are practically gone. And for those who just enjoy building massive, detailed parks, this update will help you play longer sessions without worrying about sudden crashes or performance drops. That's huge for creative players because the last thing you want after spending hours building your dream park is for it to crash without saving. The improved stability makes the game feel more trustworthy, which is exactly what it needed. On top of that, the overall optimization gives the game a better rhythm. The frame pacing feels steadier, the autosave transitions feel faster, and the UI seems to respond quicker. You can tell Frontier's been working on tightening up the back-end systems that handle resource management and rendering. Even the transition between menus feels more fluid, and that's something you might not consciously notice, but it contributes to how comfortable the game feels to play over time. Another thing worth noting is that this patch came out on all platforms at the same time: PC, PlayStation 5, and Xbox Series XS. That's something that didn't always happen in the past with Frontier's games. Usually PC players got updates a little earlier and console players had to wait a few days, but not this time. So it's nice to see full parity across platforms because it keeps the player base on the same page. If you're someone who watches or creates content, it's also nice not to have to explain, oh, this feature isn't on console yet. Everyone's playing the same version now. Now, even though this patch didn't add new dinosaurs, the timing of it feels kind of strategic. Frontier's done similar things before. They release a stability patch, then a few weeks later, they announce new DLC or a themed event. It's possible they're preparing the foundation for something bigger, maybe even a winter or holiday event, or possibly a new expansion that adds another biome or campaign. That's pure speculation for now, of course, but the way they're polishing the game suggests that something new might be in the pipeline. If you're wondering whether it's worth jumping back into the game after a break, honestly, this is a great time to do it. The improvements make the experience smoother overall, and you can explore the workshop without worrying about the game slowing down. It's also a good chance to revisit your older parks and see how much better they run now. Plus, if you've been frustrated by crashes or bugs in the past, you'll probably be pleasantly surprised at how stable it feels now. It's updates like this that remind me why Frontier games tend to have such long lifespans. They don't just drop a title and move on. They keep working on it, listening to players, and gradually improving the experience over time. Jurassic World Evolution 3 already had an impressive foundation, with its detailed dinosaur models, park management systems, and storytelling missions.